Hello, my name is Ben Gravel and I'm a tutor at the JACT Greek Summer School. In this session, we're going to be looking at two very important topics, the accusative case and the definite article. So how are we going to cover it? Well, first we're going to look at the accusative and see what it actually is. Then we're going to look at how the accusative looks in Greek, look at the noun endings of the first and the second declension. Then we'll be looking at what the definite article is and the endings in Greek, how it looks in Greek. And then some practice sentences to check that you've understood. The second section is on some slightly less common groups of nouns, some more first declension and second declension nouns, which are still important. They're still quite come up a lot in Greek, but less important than the first ones we'll be looking at. And then some sentences to check that you've understood. So what is the accusative? Well, it's important first to understand the difference between a subject and an object. A subject is who or what the verbal statement, the verb is about, who's doing the verb, and the object is who or what is acted upon by the verb. Now, English differentiates between these two things by word order. So in our two examples here, Medea killed her children and Mary had a little lamb, we know straight away that the subject of the sentence is Medea and Mary, the people doing the verb, whereas the object of the sentences are the children and the little lamb, because they come after the verb. So English uses word order. Greek doesn't use word order for this. Instead, it identifies the subject or the object by what we call the case of the word, and that's something which you can see in the ending of a noun. The subject of a clause is usually in what we call the nominative case, but the object is usually in the accusative case. So we'll see in a second how it looks in Greek, but first there are a few little things to explain. When we're looking at Greek nouns, they're divided into groups of words which have similar endings. These groups are called declensions. There are 3 declensions in Greek, and we're only going to be looking today at the first declension and the second declension. Every noun has 5 cases. We're just going to be looking at the nominative and accusative, but there's also a vocative, a genitive, and a dative, which you can learn more about in another one of these sessions. And there's also different case endings in the singular and the plural, something we call number. Nouns also have a fixed gender, masculine, feminine, or neuter. And when we look at the first declension nouns, most of them are feminine. The second declension nouns are a mixture of masculine and neuter. So this is how our feminine nouns in the first declension often look. The word that we're using here is just an example. There are lots of words that are similar to it. It's what we call the paradigm, an example of the grammar, so that you can form the endings, attach the same endings to any other word. Timer, meaning honor. The nominative singular is just timer. And you'll see I've put in a little dash. That's just to show you where the stem, the bit which tells us what the word means, and the ending, just to differentiate the two. The accusative singular, you'll see, just adds a new. That's something to watch out for. Often we just add the letter new to turn something into the accusative singular. A bit like in Latin, how the letter M often shows you an accusative singular if you've learnt Latin. In the plural, we get timai and timas for the nominative and the accusative. Again, if you've learnt Latin, that's very similar to puellai, puellas. The second declension masculine word, paradigm, that we use is logos. The nominative singular is just logos, accusative singular logon. So again, we can see the letter nu. In the nominative plural, logoi, accusative plural, logus. And then finally, the neuter, doron, is the word we're going to use, meaning gift. The nominative and accusative singular are the same, doron, doron, and the nominative plural and the accusative plural are also the same, dora and dora. Now that makes it easy in some respects because it's easy to learn, but also most difficult because it's harder to distinguish between nominative and accusative. You have to use the context of it. When it comes to learning, it's also worth remembering a little rhyme which might help you learn that it ends in the letter alpha. Neuter plurals, always remember every day, neuter plurals end in A. So here's the 3 different tables laid out together for you to see how they look. And you might want to pause the video now and just Have a go at writing them down, trying to learn them, saying them to yourself. Okay, so how does the definite article work? What is the definite article? Now, its basic meaning is just the, but we can translate it as my, your, his, her, its, their, based on context. So we've got an example below which might illustrate this. Literally, this is the general pursues the soldier. We've got our nominative, ho strategos, and our accusative, ton stratiote. The ho and the ton are the definite articles here. We could just translate it as the soldier, but here it's quite obvious from the context that the soldier is belonging to the general. So you don't have to, but you could translate this one as the general pursues his soldier. If there's no definite article, then if the word is singular, you need to translate it with English a or an, but if it's plural, you just leave it out. So how does that work? Her kore, the girl. Kore, just a girl in the singular. In the plural, hi korai, the girls. Get rid of the definite article, korai, girls. The definite article can be used in a few different ways. It's used often with nouns, like the ones we just saw, the girl, ho hippos, the horse. But you can also use it with adjectives, her sofer, the wise feminine singular, meaning the wise woman. You can use it with preposition phrases, the masculine plurals, hoi, in the house, the men in the house, and also with adverbs, hai palai, the feminine plurals long ago, or women long ago. And we're quite lucky as English speakers because we have a definite article and an indefinite article, a and the. So it overlaps quite a lot with Greek. But there are a few differences, a few exceptions. Proper nouns or names of people and places in Greek have an article. In English, they don't tend to. Her Athena is just Athene. Her Sparta, Sparta. So we don't translate the definite article there. Abstract nouns also. Her Aletheia means the truth, literally. But in English, we don't tend to put the article with abstract nouns. And also for generalizing categories. If we're talking about poets in general, in English, we just say poets are wise. In Greek, they do include the definite article. So how does it actually look in Greek? I've laid the table out here. You can see that the definite article has to have all three genders, it has all the cases, and also it has singular and plural, it has different numbers. Has to agree, has to be the same as the noun it's going with. And the normal way of learning this is in the order masculine, feminine, neuter, ho, her, to, ton, ten, to. And you'll spot, I think, that a lot of these endings are quite similar to the nouns we saw before, which makes it quite easy to learn at first. However, it doesn't always rhyme. It's really important to stress that. And you can see I've highlighted in yellow 3 endings which don't rhyme. So it's very easy to assume that they're always going to rhyme. But, you have to spot hot logos clearly doesn't, top doron clearly doesn't. And I've also said at the end, the definite article is your friend. It should help you, even if you have the most irregular noun possible. The definite article is fixed. It doesn't change. So if you know your definite article perfectly, you can be helped out of a lot of sticky situations. So tips for translating. Before I gave you these practice sentences, I just thought I'd give a sort of method that you can use. First, find any verbs and find the subjects. Always do that first. If you can't see a nominative word, which might be the subject, then always look in the verb. The verb might have a person ending. I, you, he, she, it, we, you, they. Then you can look for any accusatives and check whether words are singular and plural. Some people like to make little notes over the Greek, bracket articles and nouns together, write subject singular, object plural, verb, so they don't forget anything. And only then, when you've worked out what the words actually mean, the vocabulary, can you translate into English. There's one special rule with neuters as well. Neuter plural subjects take singular verbs. The trees is plural, but kolue, the verb, is singular, so it's a slightly strange phenomenon. So here are the practice sentences. Please feel free to pause me now and have a go. Great, I hope you enjoyed that. So let's have a look together. Now, the first one, we find the subject, hi korai, It's a plural subject. The verb is ekousin. Okay, so the girls do not have. And then we're left with kremata, our accusative. It's neuter, isn't it? So kremata could have been subject, could have been object, could have been accusative or nominative. But because we've already got a subject, I think we can say that it has to be the accusative. So the girls do not have money. Number 2, we find the verbs first, thaptor and blaptor. However, we can't see a subject. So where do we look? We look inside the verbs. And the ending or tells us that the subject is I. Then we've got lithus, accusative plural, and tous hippus, accusative plural. I am burying stones and I am harming the horses. We've also got the difference between lithus, which doesn't have a definite article, and tous hippus, which does. Number 3, we are writing the letters and sending them, or we are writing and sending the letters. Number 4, this is an example with proper nouns, which have the article, but we don't translate them in English. Athene and Poseidon, hear the voices. Number 5, well, ten timen has to be accusative, so ta afla, probably going to be nominative. And this is one of those strange ones where it's a neuter plural nominative, but it has a singular verb. The prizes provide honor. We don't need to translate the definite article with honor because it's an abstract noun. And finally, number 6, the fear stops the war. Now, tricky one, isn't it? Because the word order has been moved around a bit. And this is quite unusual in Greek. Greek normally puts the subject first. So when that's changed, it puts real emphasis on this word war. We might say in English, it's the war that the fear is stopping. Great. We'll move on now then to these slightly less common tables. Firstly, some variations on the first declension theme, variations on timer. Timer ends in an eta, but we're just going to see quickly 2 groups which just change that eta to an alpha. They look exactly the same for our purposes, but I've differentiated them because when you start looking at the genitive and the dative, chora and thalassa, these 2 tables will be different, but for now they actually look very similar. Some words like chora then end in alpha and have a stem ending in rho, like chora does, epsilon, iota. Other words like thalassa, C, where the stem ends in other letters. And the only change is that in the nominative, we have an alpha instead of an eta, and in the accusative also. Rather than timer, we get choran, thalassan. All the plurals are exactly the same. So it's actually a very easy change. Just swap an eta to an alpha. We also have some first declension nouns which are masculine. The 2 tables that we're going to see are krites, judge, which have an eta, and neanias, young man, which have an alpha. So it's equivalent to the difference we just saw between eta words and alpha words. The other big difference that we can see already is that the nominative singular ends in sigma. Now, there are differences in other cases, but actually, if we just leave it at that for now, because we're only looking at the accusative. So we get krites, nominative singular, and kriten, but the plural is exactly the same. Neanias is just the same, but with an alpha. Neanias, then neanian. The big thing to remember, though, is that we need to use the masculine definite article. So these are definitely not going to rhyme anymore. So a quick summary then of all the first declension words. Timer, the eta word, chora and thalassa, the alpha ones, all feminine. And then below we've got the 2 masculine ones. You can see I've placed krites under timer to show you that they're equivalent, and neanias under chora to show you that they're equivalent as alpha words. But you can see really clearly, because I put the article in, how the masculine words, we can't expect them to rhyme. So we need to be a bit careful about that. Then we've got second declension feminine words. They go like logos, but they're feminine. So the endings don't change. The endings are exactly the same as hot, logos, but the definite article is going to have to be feminine. And the 4 really common words like this are biblos, book, Nessos, island, Nossos, disease, and hodos, road. So feel free to pause now to have a go at these 6 sentences. Great, let's have a look at how they work then. Okay, we've got hoi stratiotai. Okay, we can see that the endings don't rhyme here. It's a masculine word, but it's first declension, so it looks a bit feminine. The soldiers admire the goddesses. Number 8, hair biblos. Again, this is one of those ones which goes like logos, but it's feminine, unexpectedly. So the book, subject, teaches the citizens. Tous politas is our accusative. Number 9, the sailor guards justice. Now remember, abstract nouns have an article in Greek, but we don't need to translate it in English. So not the justice, just justice. Number 10, tricky at first because we can't see a subject. So where do we look? Inside the verb. Paraskuas deis, you. You are preparing the way or the road. Number 11, we've got our subject, hopolites, our accusative, ten choran, blapte, the verb. The citizen harms the country. And number 12, again, no obvious subject. So where do we look? Inside the verb, dior komen, we are pursuing. Kritas and koras. Now there's no definite article here, so we have to know our endings. They're both accusative plural. So we are pursuing judges and girls. Excellent. I hope you've enjoyed that and learned something. There are more sessions just like this on the JACT website. That's www.greeksummerschool.org. Goodbye.